Welcome back. Episode 2 of Season 2 of the Thanks for Rolling podcast. I'm Jeff. I'm here with Pat. And Pat, we have a special guest.
We do. Tonight we are joined by Audra Murzycki. Did I get it right?
You did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether...
We're off for a good one.
Just as you were about to start to say that, I was like, oh, is he actually going to say the last name? That's even more powerful.
I know. I know we've had some podcasts in the past where we just entirely avoid the last names because we're just not sure.
Yeah.
When I interviewed you, I was also nervous about your name. I believe I had to say it like 3 times to make sure I had it right.
Just throw the G in there when you need to, right?
Yeah, it won't bother me.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Audra, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
It's been a while.
I'm a little nervous. I've never been on the other end, not having to come in with questions.
Yeah. So when we first met Audra, she was here to interview Pat for, at the time, Black Belt Magazine.
That's right.
Right. And then she, it was like the hottest day of the year last year, right?
So brutal.
It was a ridiculous, brutal day.
The hottest jiu-jitsu I've ever done.
Yeah. And then she stayed and took a class with us. Probably June of last year, maybe?
It was right around this time,
Right around this time? Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So, and then we had the luxury or the pleasure of seeing you at a bunch of different events, right?
Yep.
And we've always kind of had it in our head like, oh, we should turn the tables on Audra and have her come here.
Yeah. So Audra spends a lot of time interviewing others. So time to turn the tables.
Yes, I'm honored.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So, we generally like to hear, I have so much stuff to ask you, but we generally like to start with the jiu-jitsu journey, right? So, how did you end up with jiu-jitsu?
Well, I was doing title boxing to lose the baby weight, just the classic story. And one of my coaches there was doing an MMA fight, and I went to watch, and there were grapplers, and I was like, what is happening? I was very confused, and the whole experience made me want to go martial arts shopping. Title is fantastic, really, really great. It's great for weight loss especially, but I wanted to really learn martial arts, and so I went to a couple of different places. And the first time I tried jiu-jitsu, I drove home and I was like, that's the one. I knew it without a doubt.
Where was that?
That was at Phoenix Lowell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long ago are we talking?
That was 3 years ago. And I was there for about 8 months. And then I changed to Team Flow, where I trained for about 2 years. And I just recently changed to Bazzani in Nashua.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you weren't with Flow anymore.
Yeah, I was at Flow for a while. It's this fantastic shark tank of a gym, just like a fun environment, and I loved it. And then I had connected with these women over at Bazzani and was sort of a part of this group doing things outside of jiu-jitsu and just really wanted to make the transition. But it's all New England United, so it's really the same team. And I also cross-train at Seneca in Marlboro, so within New England United, I really hop around.
NEU is Dedeco's schools, right? Yeah, okay. That's
Yep, that's Dedeco.
Yeah. That's cool. I didn't realize that you had been in a couple different places then. So traditionally in the gi.
Yeah, I want to live in my gi. When I was at Team Flow, they have this really good no-gi program, and I would try, I don't know, I just feel very comfortable in the gi and very uncomfortable no-gi.
We'll try to change that today.
Good.
Try to flip that around for you
All
tonight.
right.
What aspects of it has you feeling that way?
Oh, well, I feel like I'm old and I want to slow down the young wrestler boys. And with a gi, I can just hold them. I've learned techniques to do that. And the athleticism of no gi, it just doesn't seem to suit me. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I can't run around like that. It's not I have slow jitsu.
That I can empathize with. I have slow jitsu too. I do slow jitsu without the gi though.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, but I started off in the gi, right? So I understand what you're saying. I know there's a transition there. It's not easy.
I mean, for most people, it's a hobby. You're doing it because you like it, so you might as well do the style that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been about 3 years, you said, right?
Yep.
Recently got promoted.
Yes. Yep. Back in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you feel different?
No. I feel different. I mean, just over time and learning jiu-jitsu, but I don't know.
Did you feel, was it hard after you got promoted to, like, did you feel like you deserved it?
Yeah, I'd been training a while, and I felt ready for it. Yeah, I didn't feel like it was a huge, it's just different color. I don't know.
Step along the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I still have some white belts that can challenge me, and some purple belts who I feel like I can occasionally maybe challenge, maybe. So it's all just color. I don't know.
Yep.
I just like training.
It's your personal achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, totally agree. So you also do some stuff around the jiu-jitsu community, right? So talk to me a little bit about, well, Rolling Times now, right? But how did you get involved with them, as you have an editor title, right?
Yeah, chief associate editor.
Yeah.
I write articles, interview for them, make commercials, anything. So how did I get involved with that? I cross-trained with a guy named Arturo, I'm trying to think of his last name, oh my goodness, over at Seneca. He's a Seneca black belt. And he had asked me to edit an article that he was writing for a magazine. And I did a couple for him. And he had said to them, like, hey, if you're looking for an editor, I have someone who's been editing mine, and she does jiu-jitsu. So I connected with my boss over there, Graham, and then Laborio, and they asked me to start doing some other things other than editing. So it just kind of rolled. I just dove in. Yeah.
Did you have a professional background in editing or writing prior to that?
I have edited for the Althea's Realm series. It's a sci-fi by Audra Murzycki, who I'm related to through marriage. And I really enjoyed doing that, so I took some classes. And I've always liked writing for fun, so it's just something I've been good at. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't really know what that means to be editing. Like, I mean, I know it's not just spell checking, right? But like, what does that mean? Like, what do you do if you say I have to edit this article?
I do a lot of editing for content. Editing for people who write for the magazine is tricky because they're not writers. They're black belts in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. So some of them happen to be very talented, and they'll send me something, and I'm like, this is great. And then some of them need a lot more guidance. I had a guy send me 3-page paper with no periods. Not one.
Oh,
I don't even know how Word allowed him to do it. And
you get those little guys.
Yeah.
I was amazed, and every time I get something by him, I always call him my Everest. And
yeah.
But his content is good. What he wants to get across is great, but it's a stream of consciousness, and I have to put it together into something that humans can read. Yeah, so I do a lot of that.
And then did I see you do some writing on your own? Book reviews?
Oh, I have Hummingbird Reads as my little side interest on Instagram. I wrote a novel, and I haven't entered into the world of rejection yet, and to try to get it published. And it just kind of got sidetracked by life. And I had been reading a lot. I've always been a bibliophile since college, and I like to read and review books for fun. For the magazine, I did review Robert Drysdale's book, Opening Closed Guard. Yep. So I've been trying to get a little more professional with it.
Well, you can't just tell us you wrote a book without telling us about it.
Well, it's a fiction, a historical fiction based in World War II, where I don't know. Maybe I won't tell about it. I'm really weird about my book. I'm a farmhand, and I started at that farm because I needed research for the book that I wrote, which takes place on a horse ranch. I didn't know anything. So I went there and asked if I could shadow someone, and she was pregnant and she had a baby, and I did her job during her maternity leave, and she ended up going somewhere else, and I just never left. So I've actually been at a farm for like 3 years just because I didn't want to leave. Yeah. Once you go to a farm, nothing's better, as you know. So that's how I get involved in things in the weirdest ways.
Yeah, you have your fingers in a lot of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, that's okay. Neither do I. besides the podcast host, I guess. Yeah, you don't have to tell us the plot. I just think it's interesting that I'm fascinated by someone who can. I'm fascinated by the process by which someone can write a novel. Because for me, I don't have I can't slow myself down enough to be like, I know they say you gotta write 1,000 words a day, right, or whatever, and I can't
get all the detail in there.
I couldn't for me, I would have a hard time doing that. I realized that the idea is you write that so that you're not trying to bite off, eat the elephant, right? And I couldn't do that. I wouldn't know how to do that. So it's a mental game there that I can't even get my head around being able to do.
The book flew out of my fingers. I couldn't spit it out fast enough. I had the entire plot in my head and I wrote it very fast, and then I had to fill in some gaps, but I can't describe it. It wasn't a labor. It was okay, I've got to go to bed. I have to stop. Let me make a few notes of what I know I need to write tomorrow. And then the next day I'd wake up and I'd keep going. It was a very intense process. And I've had several ideas for books. I've had several books that I've started. And that one just really was the one. It just had to come out. I've had maybe 3 people read it. And I've gotten good feedback from it. I don't know exactly why I haven't pulled the trigger on seeking out publication, but
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I've been spending 6 months just trying to type up a few pages of curriculum for the fundamentals class, and I just can't get it to flow through my fingertips.
Well, that's different than a story. Writing fiction is it's creative and
a million times harder is what you mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like I knew this person in my head and I had to express this person, and I came up with characters that this person would like, and it just kind of came out. I don't know.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm my brain is so far separated from being able to do something like that.
It's funny because I've written scripts, movie scripts or short scripts. Mm-hmm. And once I got started doing those, once I got rolling, it gets going. But the idea of writing 200, 300 pages is it hurts my head, right? Yeah. So, where are you from?
Connecticut.
You are from Connecticut. Whereabouts?
West Hartford and Bloomfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where do you live now?
Groton, Massachusetts. I almost said Groton, Connecticut.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Nobody even knows
Very
there's a
different
Groton,
places.
Massachusetts.
I didn't either. If you had said Groton, Connecticut, I would say, oh, okay. Even though I know you weren't in Connecticut, but.
Nope.
Okay. So I know both those areas, obviously. I know we have a bunch of jiu-jitsu questions for her, right? You guys have had my understanding is you guys had a debate about a type of jiu-jitsu competition at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Was this about rule sets at tournaments, at super fights?
Super fights.
Yes.
The concept
of a super
being
fight.
called a super fight.
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
One of you is a fan of it being called a super fight, right? And one of you is not. Is that my understanding?
I think I'm more strongly against it than you are for it. But I think you were on the other side of the line from me a little bit.
I can't remember. Well, it doesn't matter what I remember. I'm trying to think what I think now. My thought was we had gotten into this conversation because I had done one, or I was about to. Mm-hmm. I forget where I was in the process when we had the conversation. And I didn't like calling it a super fight because I was a white belt and it was who am I? And there's debate about what I used to call my single match. I called it a single match. Mm-hmm. And I felt that was appropriate. It is one match at a time. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what your rank is. It's a single match. But I suppose now I don't feel like it should be called a super fight unless it is some kind of serious showcase.
Right. Gordon Ryan, Andre Galvao at ADCC. It's a super fight. Mm-hmm. It's the two best guys. Mm-hmm. The match is years in the making. That's a super fight. So, although the part of the problem I have, if we split the words, it bugs me calling jiu-jitsu matches a fight. Uh-huh. And I don't get super hung up on that. I can see the arguments both ways with that one. Like people will say, well, you know, if you get in a street fight and no punches are thrown, but someone gets double-legged and knocked out on the pavement, was it a fight or was it not a fight? So like, where do you separate like what makes it a fight? But then when you put it together with super, it's like,
well, maybe there's two different things here. There's the idea of tournaments, whether it's a fight, and then there's the street, whether it's a fight. I would say if you have a confrontation on the street that gets physical, you can go ahead and say you've been in a fight.
Yes.
agreed.
But if you're in a tournament, the difference is to separate grappling from the striking arts, so that, you know, saying I'm in a single match or in any form of jiu-jitsu match sort of separates it from, you know, automatically, you know, I'm not getting hit and I'm not hitting, but it's still a sport, it's still a match. If that makes sense.
Would you say a fight is any kind of physical confrontation?
On the street?
No, not necessarily.
Oh. But I think it's a strong distinction.
I would agree with you that anything that happens on the street where you're in an altercation with someone,
Where
you
it's
could
very
say it's in a
real,
fight. Yeah.
you can't tap
Yeah.
out.
Right. Well, you could, but it won't matter, right?
Right. I mean, well, you could be like mercy and
Yeah.
maybe, but
Yeah.
it depends what the fight is for.
But if I'm upstairs in the gym and I am grappling with you, that is not a fight.
No.
Although you could also say that, this has happened once in a while, you're at jiu-jitsu and people start to actually fight. They get mad at each other, egos, something goes wrong. It doesn't happen often in jiu-jitsu really, but it can. Someone shoves someone, then you would turn and say like, oh, what's going on? Oh, they got in a fight. And it does make it a distinction. I don't know if that would be the case if you're sparring when you're doing a Muay Thai class, but I suppose the words match and fight are different for these distinctive reasons.
Interesting point. So in that example, the term fight is more closely aligned to the sentiment being I'm now intending to hurt you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
On the street, it's the same thing.
Yep.
If I'm in a UFC match, right, my intention is to hurt you. If
Yeah.
I'm sparring, I'm not.
Yep.
Right? If I'm training upstairs and we're grappling, I'm not.
Takes the
Right.
consent out of it.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu's consensual, sparring is consensual. Technically, you could be in a street fight that's consensual. We're both in here. We're in here to go, but it's a different understanding. These are
Right.
hard to define.
Right. And to contradict myself, if you compete long enough, you're going to come across matches that feel like the other person was trying to fight you.
Mm-hmm. And then it's almost hard to resist. Every so often, the feeling, I think, comes over everybody where you kind of have this urge to hit someone.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if you guys, this happens to me sometimes, not very often, but like even with my primary training partners where they'll do something and I'm like, you know what, fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Like where you get like a bit of an edge, right?
Yep.
Does that happen to you guys?
I had a training partner, a female training partner, her butt once in anger.
You did what with her?
I smacked her ass in anger. She's my buddy. I love her. And I think it was shin to the nose for an arm bar. It happens all the time, but it was so hard and I was so mad at it.
We taught that one last night.
Yeah, we did actually. You're right, we did.
So I think these things can happen. Everybody can get that urge, but sometimes there's a little edge and then you have to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last couple of training sessions before the match last week, I was getting annoyed with some rounds that I was doing, but I also recognized I was at the tail end of 8 weeks of hard training and probably just a little irritable in general. And I don't think they were doing anything to me they don't normally do. I think just my reception of it was a little different.
That's what I was going to ask. Was it something that someone else was doing during the session, or was it your disposition that was?
Yeah.
Sometimes you also adjust your jiu-jitsu when you're angry. It becomes, if I find that, I think when it happens the most with me is if men are really using strength to a point that I think it's not quite to where I'm going to stop it, because I have stopped it before where I'm like, don't throw me, I'm a little person, but like if it's not quite to that point, but they're just being like sitting on my face or something, like, come on, you don't need to do that. I might adjust my jiu-jitsu where I'm going to cross face way worse than I normally would and just try to be a little more like, elbow into their jaw or to move them or something. So I think there's that. I'm a woman. I'm not cursed with the male ego, so it probably doesn't happen to me as often. But I can also get away with more for that reason.
Yeah.
Interesting segue. The idea of how larger, stronger, athletic men need to appropriately train with women, right? It's a tricky line that I think a lot struggle with, because there's the perfect middle ground in there somewhere, right? They shouldn't necessarily be using all of their size and strength in those attributes, but at the same time, it's also disrespectful if they're not like trying for real, right?
Yep. Well, if you don't try at all, a woman who really trains is gonna give you a problem.
But even if they don't, like, you shouldn't just be flopping around like a floppy fish because you're going against a woman.
Yes.
Like, you need to find that middle ground of where you're giving them the realest jiu-jitsu that you can without using your extra 100 pounds of weight, maybe.
I have an article coming out in Rolling Times in the next week or two, actually, about finding balance with your training partners, whether they're older or younger, male or female, their belt color, just about how you see a person you're about to roll with and that you've never rolled with before, and you're going to immediately size them up. You don't even consciously have control over it. It's the way you would with anyone who you're about to have a physical altercation with. And anyone who trains knows you can't trust your eyes. You don't know what's coming until you feel the touch. It's why people will often, you start kind of slow. An upper belt will start very slow and literally give you their hands to see what you do with them. And then you can match the energy appropriately. And I think there is this tough spot. So I'm a woman. I'm 140 pounds. I'm a small person, and I'm a blue belt. So I sometimes have to talk people through this. I had a white belt recently absolutely throw me and then land on me very hard. And I tapped, and he looked at me confused, and I said, "You can't throw me like that. I'm a woman." And he said, like, "Oh, I saw the blue belt and I thought you'd destroy me." And I was like, well, yeah, maybe, during the jiu-jitsu part, but if you're going to roll with a black belt who's 70, don't throw him either. It's a balance that you have to find. And some people have to be told that, and some people just figure it out. Some have a good sense of it on their own. But yeah, it's a challenge I think most people have to face, especially the larger people.
It's interesting. Do you think there's a difference in, if a 140-pound man comes in, white belt, and off the street, right? And I go to roll with him, and I am not using strength, right? I'm just trying to be like, all right, I'm going to use a ton of technique, right? And is there a difference in what I should do with that person versus what I should do against you as a woman?
My take is I leave my modern feminism at the door when I do jiu-jitsu. On the mat, it's reality. It's all that I have. I have no idea that I think this could be an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion that men are, everything about a man's body is to fight. They have faster twitching muscle fibers. They have testosterone. They're set up for it in a different way. My body is designed to make babies. It's just a genetic difference. It's very real. So it's why I think more women need to train. The mats are filled with men. They don't need it as much as women do. They don't get attacked as much as women do, and they serve a better shot in a fight than a woman does, naturally, generally speaking. So I think that women need to train because the men in the room are the ones that can help you develop that ability to have a shot in a fight. And the men I train with have permission to be on me so that if someone doesn't, I can get him off. And that is the purpose of my training. That's why I started. And it is a little different with a woman. Don't get me wrong. If you find, I've got male training partners who I've matched up well with, they've told me they can go as hard as they can on me. Physically, we're matched for it, and that's fine. But it is something to just take in mind. And things like I brought up earlier, like sitting on the face, there's just a little bit of, sometimes, how you set up so that you can do a Kimura? You're sitting kind of on the person's head and you're squeezing it with their knees. If a man does that to me and he doesn't go for the sub fast, I'm tapping. No, you're not practicing that on my head. Get off my face. And if a woman does it, I'll work on my escape. It just feels different. I can't define it. I don't care if it's sexist. It's just how I feel about it. I don't know if that answered your question. I tangented a bit.
I just think it's interesting. So I've trained with women throughout, my time in jiu-jitsu. And first of all, I know that if I don't try, I will get my ass kicked because the women that I've trained with are fucking savages.
They'll keep you busy.
Yeah.
That's what women do. Just keep
savages.
moving. Yeah.
And will not tolerate, oh, you're going to lay there? Well, now I'm going to tap you out 25 times.
Yep.
At an incredible pace that I can't even think to keep up with.
Yep.
But I also know that the strength or power that I would try to engage against Ryan, right? I'm not even going to tap into that against those women. But it's also enjoyable because that I'm going to focus. I don't have to worry about that part of the game, right? I can focus 100% on pure technique. And I don't say that in any way to be disrespectful. Because I think about it just like that 140-pound white belt guy off the street, almost the same thing, right? I don't have to worry about any of that mechanism. Maybe I should never have to worry about that mechanism as a true jiu-jitsu player, right? But there is that comes into play regardless. So I don't know what my point is here, just that I often like that because it's a chance to work on things without your physical attributes being in the way, right?
I think I've heard female training friends tell me that they find it insulting when men say, "Oh, you're stronger than I expected." I don't know why they get offended at that personally, because again, I just think it is what it is. We're not usually as strong. I work out really hard. I work on a farm. I do everything to make me a stronger person for my size than average. So I hear that a lot, and I take it as a compliment, which I think is why it's given. But I don't think most women get insulted when they hear the typical women use a lot of technique. It's kind of known because that's what they have in their back pocket is I train a lot. I have technique. I'm not going to be able to power push you off of me. I have to learn how to get my legs under you. That's the whole point of jiu-jitsu is leverage and learning to use your legs.
I'm interested to read that article when it's available because I think it's a learning moment that a lot of people need. Like you were saying, some people it's obvious, they just get it. Sometimes it naturally comes with experience, but I don't think it always does. And like you're saying, the person that threw you and landed on you, it was not obvious to him. He needed that moment to be educated on how to act a little bit more appropriately.
Yeah.
And I interviewed for that article Victor Bazzani and Allison Thurston, who are both Dedeco black belts that own schools that are known for retaining women. When women are comfortable, everyone's comfortable. That's a healthy environment. And so I wanted to talk to these two people about, what's the secret sauce? How is it that you retain, Bazzani's got 20 women, something like that. Allison is a woman, so she explained about how she starts that sort of from the ground up. Every man that walks in there is under the authority of a woman from the start. So it was interesting. I needed some expert opinions to talk about that and to talk about aging grapplers and all of that, because anybody can really train.
I'm going to tell you a story. I'll be interested to hear your opinion of this. I don't know whether this is something to be proud of or not, but at my old gym, we were finishing drills and we were kind of just doing our live rolls. And one of the women at our gym who, again, she would kick my ass if I ever, took a pause. She's, pretty good now. I think she's the purple or brown belt now. She was rolling with a guy who was relatively new, and he was being pretty aggressive. And I think at one point, so I was training with one of my other buddies who's now a black belt, and I think we heard her say, whoa, dude, you're going pretty hard there, right? So we stopped, and we switched up, right? And I went with him, the new guy, and then my buddy rolled with her. And, I gave him a pretty good beating after that, just was pretty aggressive with him. And he came up later and said, was I doing something wrong? And I was like, yeah, man, you were just like a little bit too aggressive. I was like, I know that you're learning this, but like, you've got to realize that there's a time and a place for that and a partner for that. And, you know, not everybody's, you're not gonna be able to do that to everybody, which is why I was aggressive with you, because I wanted you to see that like, you can't just be smashing around a 120-pound girl because you happen to be bigger. Yeah. Right. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think of when I tell that story? Because that's,
I think that's spot on, you know. Not just women, but anyone who's significantly smaller than you or at a really lower skill. If you got a brown belt beating up a white belt, are you really going to brag about it in the lobby? It's nothing to brag about. Sure, they're a white belt. Give them 10 years and they'll be where you are. And for women, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, do you want to brag about like how you beat up a girl all the time? You have to curb your ego a little, because occasionally you're going to get beat up by a girl. When you train with women, they're going to get you to tap. And getting them to tap, it can be something. If she's a brown belt and you're a white belt, yeah, you know, you can feel a little good when you get her to tap, but there is a courtesy there. And it's, what are you seeking out of, you know, we're all seeking the thrill of getting people to tap, but what is it you're getting out of it? Is it equal opportunity for any partner? Is it a little, you know, more of a boost when it's an upper belt? It's really about seeking that thrill, but in a way that's appropriate, and one where you are all learning all the time. When you get someone to tap, that's a learning experience for them. You're not doing it to hurt their ego or to hurt their body or to hurt their feelings. We're all mutually trying to get the same thing out of this, and that's learning.
Yeah, I was going to make a very similar point to something you just touched on there. I have this conversation a lot with usually newer people, and it's when they're down on themselves because they got tapped out 10 times in a round, or they feel like they can't do this, they can't do that. And my question is always, well, what are you trying to get out of that round? Mm-hmm. Like, are you here rolling with people just because you want to win that round, or are you trying to learn what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Right? It's going to look very different. You're going to do different things if you're trying to win this arbitrary round that doesn't mean anything, versus if you're trying to, you know, get better at the skills that you learned in this class. You're trying to get to the position that I taught you tonight. You're trying to, I don't know, do the submission that we did tonight, but it's hard to get there, but you're working on it. Mm-hmm. You know, the goals and the results are going to look very different depending on who you are, who you're matched up with, mm-hmm. and what you care about. And we try to steer people away from that mindset of the winning and the losing in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like, I know my personal most fulfilling sparring here at the gym is when I have something specific that I want to work on, right? Like, I go out and I watch some stuff from Eddie and like, oh, that's what he's doing with the lockdown there, right? And then I go and just try that for like a month straight, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's fulfilling to me. And maybe it's because I'm an old fart, right? And I've already been tapped out 7 million times. I don't really care at this point, right? But like, it's different, right? It's different than like, I've got to go and I've got to tap this guy 5 times, right? That's like a dominance feeling mm-hmm. that you're getting, right? Versus a learning feeling. Mm-hmm. It should, you know, you can get to that tap while you're doing those things you're trying to get to, right? But if that's the only thing I'm worried about, it's a totally different mindset in my for me at least. Then
I spend a lot of time in bad spots,
shitty positions
against big people, small people, men, women. Sometimes the white belts tap me out because I allow them to get a little bit too far down mm-hmm. the chain of what we're doing, and I can't get myself out of it. And they're like, well, you let me do that. I'm like, let's be clear. I'm never letting you submit me.
Right.
Yeah. I let you get to my back.
I let you get a little too far, and you did the right things, and I had to tap.
I think that jiu-jitsu nerds are always trying to put together their own puzzle, and they can't always share with their partners exactly what that is. I know for me, I went a long period where I wasn't trying to sub people. I was sick of getting smashed all the time, so I worked for honestly a year on my open guard game. And if I have anything that I think I'm good at for my level, it's hard to pass me because of that year where all I cared about was feet on the hips. They're not getting around. They're not getting around. I went a long time where I didn't know where to go with that until one day my old coach was like, okay, just start omoplating. Like, if you're going to do this, just go for that. And, trying to give me somewhere to go. But for a while, it's just a dance. I'm just going to keep you running around and tire you out. And I would get my rush out of watching people breathe heavy because they couldn't get around. And trying to pass is cardio. It's hard. And so I wasn't getting sub-satisfaction. And people don't know that. So then they might pass and then they sub me and then we start over. And me in my head, I'm like, all right, let's run around again. Let's work on what I'm working on in my head. And I don't sub people very often because of it. So it's all a matter of what you're working on.
Yeah, those are important skill building journeys to go on. You need to.
Yep.
We talk about the farm.
Sure, I love to talk about the farm.
I knew you would. So I didn't know that you did that. Like, all of a sudden I noticed, like, oh, Audra's posting videos of her at a farm. Like, is this her farm? Like, I had no idea. So you were doing research, and then you ended up kind of filling in, and then you just ended up kind of staying.
I just stayed.
So what do you do? Like, what's your?
So I know I've already said that I have my hands in a lot of pots, but I'm actually going back to my original career. So starting this summer, I'm going to be a mental health therapist at the farm. Again, I'm just never leaving there. So I started there. It was a different owner and everything. This was years ago. Right now, it's Good Pickens Farm in Westford, and they have summer camps and they have day programs, and they have horse riding lessons, everything. It's just a magical, wonderful place. You can even grow food there in the greenhouse and everything. I clean cow shit. I clean horse shit. I carry buckets. I climb ladders. I throw hay. All of it is part of my cross training. I'll run with the wheelbarrows while they're full for no reason. I'm always trying to get a workout while I'm there. And then I just get to bond with animals and post all my cute little animal videos. And I have this weird animal following and a weird jiu-jitsu following, and my page is bizarre.
It's very respectable work, though. I spend every day watching my wife out there doing all the same work, and it's badass.
I feel good after completing a checklist. People underestimate the power of a checklist in your life, and farm work is checklist work. And it's having living sentient creatures, is that the word?
Sentient,
thank you. Sentient creatures that rely on you and trust you, and you form these bonds. So I love that part of it, but I love the manual labor of it. Even on a really hard winter day, as long as you don't get wet. If you get wet, you're gonna hate your life. But as long as you stay dry on those days, I leave feeling really accomplished. Everyone got fed. Nobody's sleeping in poop tonight. I've done everything I need to do. Everyone's cared for. I feel so good.
Yeah, if you don't feed them, they don't eat. If you don't clean their stalls, they sleep in shit.
Yep. It must be done. And they're grateful. I post a lot of the alpaca videos of them having an absolute celebration when their stalls are cleaned.
Fresh shavings.
Oh, fresh shavings. It is wonderful to watch. The chickens, everybody appreciates it. And it is. Respectable work's a good word for it. I love it.
It's very funny to me. I crack up. I've probably messaged you about it, but like, just to see their reaction to you, it's like hilarious. Like, they just like personalities, right? Like,
yes,
really funny.
I have a duck that thinks I'm his girlfriend. I figured that out recently.
Are you his girlfriend?
I am his girlfriend, little Thor. He's so cute. Anyone who's listening to this, Audra, my dear, you can check out the little farm animals. But I recently started, I've always held him, but I started sitting and letting him snuggle with me. And then he started like pecking me and attacking me, but it wasn't like angry. And I was like researching this. I'm like, oh, that's what ducks do. He thinks I'm his girlfriend. So now I have to stand up with him. We all have to learn our boundaries, and I've given him some boundaries.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're good videos. Definitely check them out. What time is it?
It's about time for class.
Oh God, I have to do
training
no-gi.
to do.
Time to do no-gi.
We have to ask you, is anybody up there?
Probably.
Okay.
It's okay.
We have to ask you two important questions. The first question is, what do you tell people when they ask you about what's the thing you do at the gym?
Like explaining what jiu-jitsu is?
Yeah. What's that? Do you do karate? Do you do, what is that you do? What do you tell them?
You do a martial art?
Yeah.
Oh, the answer to that, I say it depends who I'm talking to. Sometimes I'll just say like, oh yeah, I wrestle men, just because people find that funny and like weird and quirky, and sometimes I might go into more of a detailed explanation. It's a defensive art where you're grappling, which is essentially like fighting on the ground, but you don't hit and you don't kick, and you are trying to choke the other person or use joint locks to essentially break them, but it never gets that far. It usually doesn't get that far.
And then when they follow up with, oh, so I shouldn't mess with you?
I'm like, that's right. Because I had someone ask me about that at the gas station the other day. It's just like asking what I do in town. I'm like, oh, I just do jiu-jitsu here. Oh, I shouldn't mess with you. No,
Correct.
You shouldn't. Nope.
Only the second person to actually say that in response, right? So far, we've asked that question of everybody. So.
What, people don't say that?
No.
Seems like most of us kind of dance around the topic.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, it's like...
I think being more direct is probably what we should be doing.
If you're me, yeah, you have to just pretend, because it is a little bit pretending, because I don't ever want to put myself in a sticky situation, but it's fun to laugh with anyone. So you can say, yeah, yes, don't mess with me. That's right.
Yeah. I definitely avoid it. But your answer is very thoughtful, though, about like ground fighting with no kicking. And I never really think to get into that level of detail, but it really helps people understand what it is.
Because even if you just say grappling, people don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm. I always say grappling, so you're right. That's a good point.
No, I didn't know that's what it was when I went to the MMA match and saw that there were grapplers, and I'm like, what is grappling? Then they were on the floor, and I'm like, I still don't understand what's happening. I'm like, why is this man scooting? It made no sense to me.
Must have been a 10th Planet guy.
I don't know.
Want to ask you the other question?
So you did have a super fight. What was your walkout
match.
song?
You had your single
What was
match.
the walkout song to your single match?
I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. Although someone recently told me that I should play Stacy's Mom Has Got It Going On because my kid's name is Stacia. And it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I might do that.
Wow. I don't know if I can add that song to the walkout playlist.
Might kill the mood in the gym. So Jeff has a Spotify playlist that we add all these to from every guest, all their walkout songs, and we play it.
I mean,
in class sometimes.
It's like rad 80s music, right? So
you're gonna train to Whitney Houston?
100%. Yes.
Do you know what Pat's hidden guilty pleasure song is?
What?
Would you ever guess in a million years? Give me any guess that you would think
Well,
of.
now I'm wondering if it's a Whitney Houston song.
It's not a Whitney Houston song, no.
But it's something like that?
It's something equally cheesy, yes.
Oh, God. I don't know.
It's a little more modern than...
A little modern.
A little more than I Would Dance with Somebody.
Happy by Pharrell.
No, but that'd be funny, too.
I could picture that.
Kelly Clarkson.
Oh.
Since You've Been Gone.
Since You've Been Gone.
That's not his walkout song, but that's his guilty
If
pleasure.
that song doesn't pump you up, you're dead inside. That song is... yeah, I'll blast that.
Finally,
if that comes
one
on in the
person
car.
on my side.
Yeah, right. 75-1.
Got all of my family and friends against me.
I like to bring that up when I can. Just make them laugh.
Always down for a good laugh.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put either of my songs on your playlist for
Well, we have to. I mean, it's not,
It's a rule. We have to do it.
Everybody likes You Want to Dance with Somebody.
Stacy's mom is who? Who sings that song?
I don't know. Someone just recently told me that. I hadn't played it for
I
myself.
will say
or anything.
Stacia's mom has got it going
It does
on.
always catch the attention of the audience when there's like a walkout song you don't expect. Like everyone's expecting like some either hard rock or rap. Like everyone wants to get pumped up, but
I wanted something
Right
very
in the
humble
mood.
because I was like, I'm here to have fun, and that's what I wanted to walk out to.
Yeah.
It's just like, here I am, here to do my thing.
Well, what did Adam Nash say his was? It's the Hulk Hogan theme was his?
yeah, he walked out to I Am a Real American to an MMA fight, or maybe all of his MMA fights.
Yeah. So there's no right answer or wrong answer for there.
It's whatever
for that
works
matter.
for you is what we've learned from everybody.
Everybody's all over the place. We have one guy who said his was a Leonard Cohen song, which is on the playlist. We skip it when it comes up, but it's on the playlist because it's very slow and dark. Right?
Oh, you'd appreciate this one. Tom from 10th Planet Fairfield told them he wanted to walk out to silence.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Because they actually talked about that. They talked about it during the stream, whether or not they're like, oh, he came out to silence, the sounds of silence, and like whether or not that was like his choice.
That was his choice.
That's really funny.
That's interesting.
I think they asked like, oh, did he not submit a song? Right? Yeah.
Yep, no, that's what he requested.
Wow.
I think my favorite one was Nick Ortiz walks out to Purple Rain. And he has like this whole thing where he like takes off his fanny pack. Of course. He sets the tone for who he is. I like that kind of style.
Yeah.
Something very intentional.
Yeah. We saw Nick at the Enigma, maybe?
Enigma, yeah.
That's right. We were there. That's right. All right, cool.
Ready to wrap it up?
Are you ready to train?
Ready to train?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Came all this way. Gotta get some mat time in.
That's right. Audra, thank you. We will have to have you back when we can discuss more. Once you get published. There's your motivation.
I will be old and gray.
And once your next article is out, shoot the link to us so we can link it off the podcast since we talked about it.
I did want to say real quick that Rolling Times is going to be doing some partnering with Muscle and Fitness magazine, and I do have an article coming out there soon as well with Coach Mike Perry, who's kind of known around New England. So that's some exciting stuff coming out as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Afterwards, send us links to things you want us to share, and we'll put them in the podcast description.
Sounds good.
Where can people find you if they want to?
I'm on Instagram at Audra My Dear and Hummingbird Reads for, non-jitsu related book stuff.
That's right. And they can find you on Rolling Times Magazine.
Yeah, and I'm Rolling Times Magazine. I'm always around there doing different things.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming out. It's
Thanks
been a long time.
out.
Appreciate it. Very insightful discussion today. I was thinking like we got into some deep things.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
All right, let's go roll.